At this point, we have our input mechanism. Now, we're not finished with everything yet, but we've got a good start. We've seen how we can go get a prompt from the user, and we've seen how we can make a choice on what we're going to do next based off of that prompt. We've only done 2 of the 3 choices. We can add that in later on. It's not a huge deal. But if we remember our design here, our design says, once we made that choice, I want to go break up and do guest stuff, or do customer stuff, or do employee stuff. Now, what do we mean by employee stuff or guest stuff? Well, then what we mean by that is I want to go to the user and say, give me information about you being a guest, customer, employee. So if they're a guest, you're going to give me the IP address and the number of times you visited. If they're a customer, you're going to give me the IP address, number of visits, plus first name, last name, and username. If they're an employee, you're going to give me all of that stuff plus the employee ID. Because that's the way inheritance works. Hopefully you have a good feel for that now. Now, at this point, the rookie move, and many of you are rookies right now, would be to start writing that code right here. Now, the reason why it's a rookie move is twofold. Number one, I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of lines of code all right next to each other. And number two, I get no reuse out of that. So I want to tell you right away, there's a better way with one little step that we can throw here. Instead of trying to write all that code right here, let's create a method. Let's create an abstraction that represents this design principle right here of do guest stuff. And so the guest stuff is go to the user, ask them for information, and give me back a guest object. So let's do that. Let's go through and create a helper method to make that happen. So my helper method can be something simple like private. You know what? Let's be even fancier here. Let's create a helper class. New Java class. And this is going to be command line helper. All right, and this is going to be a reusable Java class. So let's say I want to be able to get guest information in more than just this one main application. I want to get guest information in other places. I can create a method here, public. I want to get a guest. And so get info from, get guest info from user. I don't mind big method names right there, so I want to be real explicit there. And how do I get info from the user? Well, I need the scanner. Control space. I need a scanner object. So I'm going to go to the user using the scanner object, ask them some questions, formulate a guest object, and then return it to you. That's exactly what we had talked about in our design here with the do guest stuff. And so I'm going to perpetrate this abstraction from my thought process into my code. Now, the idea of reuse in this application, there's not really any. It's more of an organizational factor. But here's the great part about it, is when I come back to this class, instead of saying you are a guest, I can say from all of these guys, I want to go get a person object. Whatever type they asked for, I'm going to go get a person object. And the work here is going to take the person P and fill it in by using my helper. So let me go build my helper object. Command line helper. I use control space inside of there. Helper is equal to new command line helper. Control space again. And I can say helper dot get user. And my pop-up right there is because of control space, or automatically does it to give you the code complete. So it pops up, it tells me a method inside of there, boom, I can go do that. So now my code is going to become, well, what type of user do you want to get? Oh, if you wanted a guest, go get me a guest. If you wanted a existing customer, go get me an existing customer. And then I can add in here, if you want an employee, go get me an employee. I'm keeping my code small. I'm keeping my flow simple. I don't have to remember 50 steps. I only have to remember a couple steps. It's kind of like me saying to you, go make me dinner. What do you want? I want meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans. So now you have 3 different recipes to go look up. They're not all written down on one piece of paper. There's 3 separate recipes. I have a meatloaf recipe, I have a mashed potatoes recipe, I have a green beans recipe. I wouldn't copy and paste them all on one sheet of paper, so why would I code them that way? Right? I want to split them up. So given this, let's come back over here and let's go get some information about being a guest. What do we need? Well, IP address and number of visits. So I need a string IP address and an int number of visits. So from the scanner object, I need to prompt you system.out.println. So I can start with something along the lines of acknowledging their last choice. Welcome, guest. Please enter your IP address. Again, this is a little bit of weird. My choice of the object's a little bit weird for command line. It doesn't matter. The idea is I'm having them input some information. So now the IP address is going to be the next item I get from my scanner. I'm going to use next line again. You'll see in a little bit why next line is useful. But just for now, use next line, make your life a little bit easier. System.out.println. Thanks. Now how many times have you visited this site? All right, so we can say number of visits is equal to, this is where we have an interesting choice. I can say in dot next int, and I'm going to start with that to begin with. All right, and then at this point I have all the information to make a guest. So guest G is equal to new guest. G dot set. Oops. Oh, I need to put an IP address in there. I'm sorry, I forgot I had done that. And G dot set. Oh, I can't set number of visits inside of G. I forgot about that. I'm going to fix that right now, real quick. I want to be able to do that. So let me fix that right now. So let me go to guest, go to person. I'm going to add in a setter inside of here. So I'm going to do alt insert a setter for number of visits. Right there. I want to do that for this part of the application. We didn't need it earlier, but I want to do it for this part of the application. So I need g.set number of visits and set that to be number of visits. And then finally return G. Now this is a bit more code than I typically would like to write all at once, but it's not super difficult code. There's a lot of copy and pasting going on. It's mostly get it and compile. But you can see I have the two variables I'm trying to fill. I am getting those two variables, and then I'm setting those into my guest object and returning it. That's my steps that I've done inside of here. So set up my variables, fill the variables, and then plop those in my object so my object's ready to go. Now, one little thing I want to do to be able to test this properly is I get person P. I don't do anything with person P. So let me say P is equal to null. And then down here, let's do system.out.println P. Just so I can see something happen with that. All right. So let's test this real quick. I run this. What type of customer am I? I'm number 1 customer, because that's the only one I've implemented. Oh, excellent. Welcome guest. Please type in your IP address. Oh, wait. Now how many times have you visited this site? Oh, crap. I forgot I changed this here. I apologize. Let me go fix this to be next line. This is one of the reasons why next line is important. I had played with this code, accidentally hit the wrong button earlier, I think, and so let's just fix that to next line. We'll ignore that for the moment, and yeah, we'll ignore that. So let's go run it again. All right, so number 1 for guest. Excellent. Welcome guest. Please enter your IP address. It doesn't matter what my IP address is. I'm going to type it as a string. Thanks. Now how many times have you visited the site? Let's say I visited 4 times. And perfect IP address is DSFA. Again, I don't have my, if I go back over here, I don't have my number. Oh yeah, I don't have a number of visits here. Let me add in real quick here. Plus number visits. And this is very realistic, by the way. I'm trying not to make it. I haven't been messing with the code in the meantime. Control control space number of visits, because I don't want you to get the idea that everything's always perfect and works. Sometimes you've forgotten something. When I did my toString, I forgot the number of visits wasn't in there because I added that later on. So I had to go back and fix it. So I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to make this look perfect. This is the types of things you might run into. And you might realize, like, hey, wait, I wanted number of visits to print out there. Why didn't it? So I go fix my code. I put number of visits here. Hit that, run it again. Number 1 for guest. IP address, again, doesn't matter what I type it in. Number of visits, I'm visiting 5 times. There you go. IP address, visits 5. That's printing out what's going to happen. This is the happy flow. This is where everything works just fine. As kind of a precursor to validation, let me show you this. I hit run. Oh, sorry, I hit the wrong thing. Number 1, guests. IP address, doesn't matter what I type in here. Thanks. Now, how many times have you visited? GTREW. I've done Gtra, the number of visits, and boom, I get a blow up. A input mismatch exception. The scanner threw this because it was expecting a integer and it got something that's not an integer. And so is that the coder's fault? Well, not really, because it was me, stupid user, that typed in something that wasn't a number. But me, stupid user, could type in accidentally. I could just be running my application, say, oh yeah, here's a guest, IP address 3. Let me fix that. 3 space. Let's see if this one fails it. Oh, that one worked okay. So it does accommodate the space, so that's good. So number 1, because sometimes not every bit of Java does, but number 1, enter 4 F. Oh yeah, because I know so 4G. Let's just say I accidentally put G inside of there. Just fat fingered it. Oops, I hit G, and then again it fails. So even though I try to put a number here, it's going to fail. And so that's why validation is important. That's what we're going to look at in one of these future bits. I want to give you a little preview there, but this is the happy case. And this is perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to start here. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to go through to your example. Hopefully, preferably, you create a little helper method inside of here. You don't have to. But if you create the little helper method, again, you can do it in the same class, you can do it in a different class. If you do it in this class, you still have to create an instance of the object, because remember, this is a static method inside here, inside a main. So I create my little helper, I create my instance of the helper, and then go ask for that information and then go pass it along. In my helper, then you can see I have my lines of code. And the main things I want to do is I want to set up my variables, I want to fill my variables, and then I'm going to create an object based off of those variables. I could create an object before, but there's no real reason to make an object until I have all the data. Often, especially with constructors, I need all the data before I can go through and fill it all in. So now I want you to go through and take this next leap. Make this part work.